So after what Amy introduced, I want to say I am not a subject matter expert in this at all. And I think there's also a world of experience in the BAMTA teachers. So I'm more looking forward to our sharing our own experiences and ideas throughout this presentation. So it's not just about me. And I've also got, I posted on the Google Drive for BAMT, it's in a folder called Dementia, various articles that I have gotten from the doctors that I've worked with. So we'll share that as well. And also, I think we only have an hour, so I may cut some of the websites that I've got in the presentation. I may cut them short, but then I will post the slideshow also on the Google Drive because there's a lot of web links within it that you can go and look at them in detail. Some of them are like 30 minutes long, so I'm for sure not going to play the whole thing, but at least introduce you to where you can find additional information. Okay. So, continuing along that line, Bombus is a Buddhist term, and it says it's a foolish being on a path seeking knowledge, and that's what I feel like I am, and feel like as teachers, we are also on that same path of always seeking knowledge as we teach. So as teachers, we have that desire and intention to do good and to share the joy of music, but in our own studios, and I know I find that, I wish that I had taught something differently. And these are our greatest stumbling blocks, and it's because of our own second nature, we stumble, and that's why I call all of us Bombus. So in recognizing ourselves as Bombus, we treat ourselves with and others with humor and gentleness and with a greater sense of awareness and compassion. There's no fixed labels of good or bad or better and worse when we embrace it all within the greater flow of life. So sharing this information as Bombus, I hope we can gently walk together, sharing our experiences, foolish beings. So sorry, but we're all Bombus. This is our list of proposed topics. In it, again, I'll have lots of articles and websites that you can go to for additional information. And I do definitely want to save time at the end for some discussion. So I may cut some of the website presentations down. So what I have shared on the Google Drive, these come from the National Institute of Health. They're documents on dementia, and these were given to me by the doctors that one of my students was really gracious about letting me walk through this whole process with her. So I went with her to all the doctor appointments, got to see all the steps that they went through to confirm that she definitely was suffering from Alzheimer's. And there's a ton of testing that they had to go through. The battery of tests that they gave her took over 2 hours to process. And I really am grateful that she was willing to let me share that and to see the tests and see how she did on them, and then to sit in on the evaluations from the doctors. And the doctors were fabulous because they were really excited about the fact that I was a music teacher and wanted to share that with us as well. So the docs that are posted out there are from them. Okay. So brain impairment is a huge, huge, huge area. It's not just dementia. It can also happen from accidents, from sports, from auto accidents, from disease. All of that can cause brain impairment. And it causes a lot of the same symptoms that you see. And then I think it's scary because as we all get older and you have that issue of, I can't think of that word, or I can't remember what I did or where I put things, it causes you fear, and you think, well, how do you tell the difference whether or not you're starting down the path of dementia, or is this just a natural aging process? So I think that's important to recognize, both for ourselves in our own sanity, and also in terms of in our students. How do you start recognizing some of that, some of the symptoms? So the first one, this one by Dr. Levinthan is actually an article. It's a letter that he has written, and he addresses that fear that we have of, you know, are we inevitably going to go down that path? And I would encourage you to click on this site and read the whole article. But basically what he says is that every lapse of a short-term memory doesn't necessarily mean that you have a biological disorder. And he's also really encouraging, saying that memory impairment is not inevitable, that there are things that you can do. You can take steps to delay it. Well, actually, there's the next one, the next link. I love his talk. This is Dr. Henry Bordati, who is a researcher and clinician. He has quite the bio on there, and it's a TED talk that he's done. And I'm not going to read his bio just to save time, but it's also on that link. So his slideshow, he's another one who's very encouraging about dementia, and let me give you a little bit about his background. He's in Australia. He is a researcher, a clinician, and a policy advisor. He's at the University of New South Wales. He's a science professor of aging and mental health. He's also the Montefiore Chair of Health Brain Aging and the co-director of the Center for Healthy Brain Aging, and the director of Dementia Center for Research Collaboration. He's also the senior psychogeriatrician and head of the memory clinic at the Prince of Wales Hospital in Sydney. It's a short presentation, a TED Talk. It's just about 10 minutes. And he is very encouraging about the fact that there's a lot going on. It's not inevitable. And he ends the whole thing saying that, you know, they're working to delay the onset. And his optimism at the end, he says, if we can delay it long enough, you'll be dead before you get dementia. So it's a great talk, and optimistic. Teepa Snow, I wish you could listen to that. She's also talks about the difference between forgetfulness and normal aging and actual Alzheimer's. And she gives great examples. So it's another good website to go and see. The 10 early signs I have posted on the BAMTA website. And let's see, let me get that. These are warning signs. It was written by the National Institute of Health. It goes into depth about the different warning signs and things to look at. So if you're wondering what are the signs, it's a really nice step-by-step 10 signs that you can look at, and symptoms. So I would highly recommend to go look at that. These are the different dementia types. They're kind of grouped as vascular, the neurodegenerative, and then all of these can also be mixed. And the VCIA and VCI are also part of that vascular impairment to the brain. And very often those impairments are mixed with other types of dementia. And each one of those types of dementias are subcategorized into multiple types. Other things that happen with dementia and causes of it are you have like strokes, blood arterial fibrillations. I can't say half of these words. High blood pressure, diabetes, cholesterol, all of that adds to it. This link down here gives you a more additional in-depth information about it. Your vocabulary will increase tenfold because of all the different terminologies that's in there. So beware when you start digging into this. Let's see, where am I? Dr. Tan's website is about a 30-minute talk. And I would also recommend listening to that. It goes into more in-depth detail, so it gets a little heavy. Also, there's some a first-hand account, that next website. I would encourage you to listen to that because it's from people who have been diagnosed with dementia, and their first-hand account of what does it feel like and what it means to them, and the different emotional aspects that they go through. Really good book to read is Still Alice. It's about a Harvard professor who discovered that she has Alzheimer's, and it's all documented, the whole process that she went through. It's heartbreaking, but it gives you a real feel of what does it feel like when you're actually going through it. And then this is another, the early dementia warning signs. It's another good website to go look at. What I find fascinating is the power of music. I actually got to see this firsthand with my own cousin who was attending college at the time, and she suffered a massive stroke. And she was actually found sitting on the sidewalk in front of a restaurant. And by the time they got her to the hospital, she was on all kinds of life support. And my aunt got to the hospital, and she had to make the heartbreaking decision to take her off of all of that life support because the damage was so bad. When they removed all the support, she actually continued to live. And so she was placed into a hospice care facility. She had no control over her legs. She couldn't stand, she couldn't sit up. She could move her arms, one arm. And it was like she was lost, and no one talked to her because you got absolutely no response. And I know I kept trying to encourage my aunt to just go play music for her. You can reach her. And one of the things that as you go through all of this, I want to encourage all of you to remember is that no matter what that person looks like they're totally not there, their inner spirit is there inside. It does not disappear. So, and you do reach them. So don't look at them thinking they're not hearing or reacting to anything that you say. They're there and they're inside. So keep that in mind when you're faced with that. And with her, I finally got to go out to visit her in California, and I took music. And my aunt was floored. She recognized the music, her eyes lit up, and she actually talked. She said, Michael. And what I was playing for her was a Michael Jackson tune. She recognized it, she identified it. And as the music went on, she raised her one movable arm, and it was in rhythm to that music. She kept coming out of that, and she started singing the words. And she started talking, and we actually conversed. She had a conversation with us. And so music did reach wherever that spirit was inside of her, and she came out. So music is really, really powerful. And the spirit really is inside of that person, no matter how much they look like they're gone. They are there. So keep that in mind. The next two websites are also illustrate that same thing. I don't know if any of you have seen the ballet dancer who was also in a hospice care situation, and she was a ballet dancer, and they played Swan Lake, which she had danced to. She had performed it. And you see her body, and it's totally non-responsive again. And as that music played, her head would lift up, and pretty soon you will see her dancing. She makes all the movements. And this particular website of showing her that shows her dancing and shows her motions, and they're going along. So she's actually recreating that as she hears the music. So I can't emphasize too much. That spirit is alive inside. This 102-year-old pianist, you put him in front of a piano and he plays. Carol and I know a fabulous musician, known her all our lives. She's actually the same way. You put her in front of that piano and you'd be amazed the hours and hours of music that she can play on that piano. And you can even make requests. She doesn't recognize me anymore. She doesn't know who I am. But you ask her to play something, and in a heartbeat, it all comes out. So all of that is still inside. This is another TED Talk by Anita Collins. And I think this is important for all of us to listen to. She has done some research on how playing an instrument really benefits your brain. So what they've done is that they hooked up electrodes to your brain, and they wanted to see what happened when you just play and you're listening to music. And they were saying that your brain just lights up. You see all this activity going across your whole brain. But when you actually play an instrument, she said, it's amazing how much of your brain just totally is activated. So that's a good website to go look and see. And the next website are a collection of studies that they've done with older adults. Some of them had already learned some music, played instruments, and some were new to it. And they were conducting studies on how does the music learning affect and benefit older adults as they start to develop dementia. And it's really encouraging. I think it's really beneficial. They're finding that it is. Another important one to read is The Caregiver's Guide to Understanding Dementia. Communicating with them is different than communicating as you would to another normal person. Their brain has changed enough that you need to be really aware of the words and the things that you're saying, because it can be interpreted so incorrectly. Their logic it doesn't go along with your logic. So it's very different. You can cause difficult behavior to come out from them, and that's because they're responding in a way that you're not going to expect them to respond. This one I would highly, I can't recommend this enough. She talks, and she's very, very well spoken on how to talk to someone with dementia. And she gives you examples of what not to say, like, well, you remember I told you this. And just the fact that you said, remember, I told you, is going to cause all this stress and anxiety to come out. And what you're going to get back in response is total anger and upset, because as they start to lose their memory or not remember, it's frustrating. And to be reminded that they can't remember is going to unleash all this emotion. So you can't say things like that. And she gives you different ways of wording things to talk to them. One way to reach people with dementia, you remember that their long-term memory is more intact than their short-term memory. So you want to know your students well enough to, when they kind of get lost, is to come back and remind them of something in their past that brings them back to you. So just in the fact that you've touched something that they are familiar with, it brings back a comfort level to them as you talk to them. And so then they're more willing to engage with you. Know what makes them laugh, because if you can get someone to laugh, again, that helps them reconnect and re-engage with you. Capitalize on their strengths, their visual, their hearing, their sense of taste. All of that will help, again, to bring them back. And you want to always be honest with them as you engage with them in their lessons. Don't because they're going to know. They can't express to you that they know, but they're going to recognize when you're not being honest. Okay, and so then again, you're going to get this odd emotional reaction back from you. And whatever you do, you want to try and make them feel successful. The student that let me participate with her in going to all her doctors and everything. One of the things that she said to me that I think is really, as teachers, we need to remember, it's really important that as she lost skill, so she was playing Bach preludes and fugues from the well-tempered clavier, Rachmaninoff preludes, sonatas, and her particular dementia actually got centered, and it's very unusual, got centered right in the area of her brain where your vision gets processed. So when she was starting to lose it, she would complain that she couldn't read music. It was hard for her to read music, but it would come and go. So it was really hard to tell whether or not she was just saying that or she was being difficult in terms of being a student. I know I exploded her music, cut it out, made it so that it was just big and you just saw the treble clef part of it and we simplified it to a Chopin prelude, and she kept saying, I can't read it, I can't read it. And she finally got to the point where she had to have one finger on the music to keep track of where she was. It progressed to the point where she said things were not together. I can't tell where they are. Well, what was happening in that brain center where the damage was starting to occur was because your eyes see stereo, right? So one eye sees slightly differently than the other eye, and your brain center has to bring those two images together to make one. Well, that was failing. So one eye would see here and one eye would see here, and to try and bring a music staff together, it wasn't. And so it was totally impossible. Her dementia progressed to the point where she couldn't tell where she was on the keys. And even if I put the label A, B, C, D, E, F, G on the keys to know where those keys are, she didn't recognize the letters. I couldn't even tell her play C on the piano. Even with the letter written on it, she couldn't find it. She can't find it. So what we ended up, and her thing is that it's frustrating. She gets really angry. I used to be able to do this. I want to be able to do this. Music is part of my life. And I thought, well, this has gotten to the point where you can't play. You can't read. You can't learn anything, any new music. And her response back is, as frustrating as it is, when I sit down at my piano, it makes me feel better, even though I'm upset. And music is so important to me. I want music in my life. So we're still trying to continue doing her music lessons. And what we're capitalizing on her other sentences. She has never played really by ear. She's always done all her music by learning the music, right? So I'll play a really short phrase, and she's starting to imitate that. And she called me the other day and she says, we got to really think about this. I need better ways for you to help me continue playing. Some of the things that she has memorized, she can start playing it by memory. And if she gets lost, if I just play the next part of it, she will start to pick up on it. So we're experimenting and trying to figure out ways of continuing to help her play. So if you've got other suggestions, I would love them. So these are my lessons learned in going through and working with people who are starting down that path. You really need to have patience. And I've had to learn to just stop talking, because it takes them longer to process, and you need to give them that silent period to just process. So I'm learning to just watch and wait and pay attention to their body language and their facial expressions. I'm accepting the confusion. I don't try to fix it anymore. And I allow all the repetition that they need. You need to just listen to them talk. Sometimes it doesn't make sense, but as you listen, you begin to learn more about their world, and you learn what their challenges are and how they're developing. And so then from there, you kind of figure out, well, okay, how do I work with them? And humor is really, really good. Again, figure out what touches their sense of humor so that you can get them to laugh, because through your lesson, they'll break into tears. They'll scream and shout. And that's the other thing. I have learned not to put someone right after them, because if they're having an emotional moment, I don't want the following student to walk in on that. So you need some space after theirs, because if they've lost it, you want to have that privacy and let them lose it. And capitalize on their strengths, figure out what they can use and how you can use that to help keep them playing, because that's what they so much want to do, is to keep playing. And stand your ground. I mean, like a child, sometimes they'll have a tantrum. So again, you need to be the person in control and help them come out of that and not let them get away with that kind of thing. And acceptance. You need to accept each other, and you need to accept each other just as you are, however they are. You accept and still love them. And I'm honest with them. I tell them when, well, okay, I still need to, we need to feel, you need to help me. You have to help me figure out what's going to work with you. And you'll find that they're willing to work with you on that. So I think we can unmute and hopefully talk. Go ahead, Carol.
You used, it sounded like, the word dementia and Alzheimer's interchangeably. Are they?
Alzheimer's is a specific type of dementia. And so, I've got it. How do they describe it? Dementia is described as not losing enough of your daily functions to not function in your real world. So that's when it becomes dementia. It's not, so that's the difference between normal aging and you kind of, lose words, can't process, think fast enough. That's not dementia. Dementia is when you actually cannot function. And so then Alzheimer's is a specific type, and that was part of the diagnosis that I went through with the student. They did both x-rays and CAT scans to find what areas of her brain were being affected, and then that whole battery of tests. And I don't know if you've heard of some of those tests where they actually ask you to draw a face of a clock and put the numbers in and show the arms so it shows a specific time. She totally couldn't do that. But if you talk to her, she would hold a perfectly normal conversation with you. So I was really shocked with that when she did that test, that she totally couldn't do it. Drawing geometric figures, squares, rectangles, circles, copy this geometric figure, absolutely non-existent. She couldn't do it. I mean, it's amazing what these tests show in the questions, and it's 2 hours worth of tests that they give you.
Okay, and one more. Are you familiar with the work of Lois Svard? Have you come across her name in any of your study?
No.
She was the second or third wife of David Burge, and so we all knew her in graduate school, but you weren't here anymore right then. But she's now giving talks at the national conventions every year about music and the brain. And I think she's got a website and a whole lot of understanding. She's been studying this area for 30 years.
Wow.
So it might be a name for all of us to, I mean, her presentation at the national convention this year was stellar. And so if you want to see it, I still have it available, but
I would love it. Yes, thank you.
Okay.
And if you go to, if you have the opportunity to go to any of these senior assisted living, just sitting down and start singing songs with them, you'll see an amazing difference in them as they listen to it and they hear it.
So, Dick, I want to thank you for this. It's been really a wonderful presentation. And you asked about any ideas for the student that you have that you're working with. And it seems like you've done some really amazing stuff already. But, when you look at all the senses, you mentioned that there, the 5 senses, and her visual sense has been truly physically impaired. You can see that structurally in the brain where that's happened. And the auditory piece she seems to be responding. But one of the things that struck me as you were saying that, she obviously responded to the auditory piece, which was when she heard it played and she saw it, visually spatially. Visual spatial things are different than background foreground on music. We see things background foreground on a piece of music, but the visual spatial stuff on a piano is very different in visual learning. And so
Mhm.
she sees you play it, and when she hears you play it, then she's having some success. Now, what I thought is adding another learning mode, which is touch. So I'm not sure that this would work if she would feel comfortable with this or you would feel comfortable, but it may help also for her. She's having that auditory piece for you to actually play a recording of the whole piece to her and give that recording to her to listen to throughout the week. And secondly, at the lesson, perhaps have her put her hands on top of your hands as you play, because then we're also getting the motoric sense
Mhm.
of learning. And maybe that part of her brain has not been damaged, and that she can gather more input from that. So she's getting the auditory and also the tactile inputs. I don't
Right.
know.
We did try some of that, like you suggested, doing the whole piece. It's too long. She can't cope with the length. So it's got to be playing one measure, two measures, maybe a phrase at most, to playing, unless of something that's new. With something that she has previously memorized, the only time I play with her is when she gets to the point and she can't remember it. And if I just play that section, she continues.
Mm.
And I did try to suggest her a few times to, well, just listen to it, listen to a recording of it. She can't figure out when she's at home how to play it.
Mm.
So she'd need somebody to do that part for her. So that's a limitation that it makes that part hard.
Does she live alone?
She used to. Her husband is now living with her, but he's also has some level of memory loss. So he's not able to help her with that music part of it. But he does, I mean, he does all the cooking and stuff like that because she cannot, she's told me she stands in the kitchen and can't remember how to make oatmeal. So he's got to help her with that. He has to help her get dressed and things like that.
So how long have you known her now?
Probably about 5 years.
Oh, wow. Okay. I have a student coming this afternoon that is going down this path, and she talks about it, and I'm loving everything that you said, especially asking if I can be involved in knowing more about what they're finding out with her and her husband. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, maybe they'll allow me in. I don't know.
It would be great if they do because it helps so much in working with them.
Right. Uh-huh. And a lot of your teaching techniques, it sounds like, are things that lots of us have dealt with dyslexic students. And so
Mhm.
it seems like a lot of the same, the same struggles and, try this and tell me what you got. And yeah, so thank you. It's
Yeah, yeah.
Shieko, I don't have anything to add or any questions, but I just wanted to say your presentation was so good, and just how you teach is so compassionate and caring, and putting the student first is really inspirational to me. And hearing how you do that, and you take the time to really get to know your students and to help out where you can. And I really appreciate and respect that approach. And it's just really wonderful hearing you talk about that, and even just bringing that to students that don't have that type of impairment, but reaching our students at that level, just where they are, and bringing the humor, knowing their story, knowing their background is really inspirational. So thank you for sharing your teaching style.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for saying that. Thank you.
Yeah, I would also say that one thing that I noticed, maybe it was your training that you've had, just with like you've been working with the, the different, oh, I don't know what to say on the correct terminology, but like students that are blind, it looks like you went with got training in the blind school. It was also from working with students with disabilities with skiing instructors.
Right. Oh, I learned a ton from that. I mean, we had to learn all their medications. We also had a lot of PTSD veterans that came into the program, as well as the blind. I mean, there was all kinds of challenging issues with the students that were part of that. And I found that even there, using rhythm just to get the steps going helped. Students that were emotionally disabled, singing to them while you're on the trail, to keeping that rhythm going and singing and songs, it helps tremendously.
What gave you the passion to start working with those students? Just curious, did you have a passion early on, or was it?
I don't know. When you asked me to put together a bio, it was like, well, I was surprised how long I have been working with all kinds of skill levels,
right,
and disabilities.
Yeah. I mean, when you have experience that way, then yeah. And just what Jill was saying, the compassion, and I know as a teacher, sometimes the frustrations, and
That's for sure.
Well,
I learned.
hasn't Milena taught us a lot about how, I mean, your close relationship with her all these years,
Yeah.
might have sparked some of this. I don't know.
I've learned a ton load of how to just really relate to people through her. I mean, my cultural background is Japanese, which tends to be more distant. And I always tell Milena, she taught me how to hug. She taught me how it was okay to emotionally relate to people. And I loved it. I love that part of what she taught me. So.
Wow. Yeah, that's great. Well, it's been a very informative presentation, and thank you.
So one more thing, how am I going to get all of these links? What do I have to do?
So
I will actually I'm recording it, and so I will actually take it and edit it a little bit, and then have Edmund put it
right. And I'll put all these slides out on the Google Drive. Do you know how to access the Google Drive?
No.
Okay,
but somebody in my house does.
But if you click on if I send out the whole link, the whole presentation, then you could click on each of the individual.
Yeah, each of the links, and one of the links will actually take you to the Google Drive. So I did put that link in there, so you don't have to sign into it or anything. You just click on it, it takes you to the folder and all the articles there, and you just pick them.
All right. If I can't find it, Abby, I'm going to call you. Sorry.
Great.
Yeah, you could send it to me, and then we could put it in the BAMTA for May. That would work too.
You mean all the links?
All the links.
Okay.
So, Shieko, are you talking about these links in Google Drive? That link is going to be on the website, on the BAMTA website? We just have to go to the website and
it's not on the website, so it's in Google Docs. So a lot of our docs, like our teachers lists, I think I also put informational docs on there on how to clean your piano that was sent out by Yama on how to disinfect it. There's all kinds of wonderful information on Google Drive in a BAMTA folder, and it's open to all paid members. So Edmund is the one that made that reachable by all members.
How do we access it?
Are you on a Google? Chrome. Are you on Chrome or
Yeah.
Gmail?
Yeah.
So you have that automatically with that, and you just go to there's a place where you click on that you can say Google Drive, and when you go to Google Drive, you can say shared with me, and it'll show you everything that's been shared with you. And BAMTA has been shared with you as a folder.
Well, the other thing too, like I said, is I'm going to include all those links along with your video presentation in BAMTA, and it's the same thing with Carol's presentation. I put it in there, and that you can click on the link there.
And you'll get everything. Yeah. And once you open a slideshow, it has all the links in it too to get you there.
Okay.
I'll try to do that as soon as possible so everyone can have the information.
Too. There's so much to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's unending. It really is.
Yeah.
And that's why I said I'm not an expert. I'm not.
Well, you have a lot more information to share with us, so thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Shieko.
It's been fabulous. Yes,
Sure.
thank you.
Well, does
Okay.
anyone else have any information or anything they want to ask Shieko before we end the meeting? No? Well, thank you so much, Shieko. I appreciate it.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you all.
Yeah,
And I'm open. If you have troubles, call me and I'll help you walk you through getting to things too.
yeah, this is very helpful. Okay, well, everyone, thank you so much and have a great rest of the day. And I guess I'll see you in May then.